everyone. This particular video is dedicated to the first section of CAT, which is verbal ability and reading comprehension. I will first go through probably a myopic view of CAT and take into account only CAT 2015 and make a strategy around it. And then around the second half of the video, I'll try to talk about the various other type of question types which could be found on the day of CAT, so that also helps you bridge in the gap as far as your preparation is concerned. First things first, last year's CAT we saw exactly 4 types of questions, and the number of questions that were there were 34 in number. Out of 34, a telling or rather a dominating number, 24 questions are from reading comprehensions. So if I talk about 24 questions, there were 5 RCs last year, 5 RCs distributed in this manner that there were 3 RCs of 6 questions each and 2 RCs of 3 questions each. That makes it 18 plus 6, 24 out of the 34. And only these 24 questions had negative marking. The remaining 10 questions did not have negative marking for the same. So in case you got a wrong answer, there was no negative marking awarded to the remaining 10 questions.
See, as far as RCs are concerned, 5 RCs, 24 questions, and very frankly, you crack those 24 questions with a 90% accuracy, you might already be glaring at a 96 percentile kind of a result even without using those remaining 10 questions of the verbal section. While I talk about these 34 questions, 24 of them that are RCs were found to be really good quality RCs with the right intensity or the density of the language which was maintained. If you read those RCs, there was a philosophy based RC, there was a history based RC, there were concept based RCs. Last 3-4 years, there's a good significant movement of CAT in terms of moving towards RCs which are concept driven. Concepts like imperialism, concepts like feminism, socialism, probably capitalism, Marxism, fundamentalism as a principle, objectivism. Now such kind of concepts where a good 300 to 600 word kind of an RC is fabricated around those concepts, and they're able to give a very clear idea about the concept, and also at the same time keeping certain loose ends here and there on the basis of which inference based questions or central idea based questions or summary based questions can be woven into this particular RC. So yes, vocabulary from CAT has evaporated, but vocabulary is dense as far as these 5 RCs are concerned, and unless you have a good hold over vocabulary or probably understanding of larger concepts, you'll always face some issues with solving RCs. So yes, first thing, 24 questions of RCs. Now how to attack these RCs? Fundamental problems with RCs generally is that people aren't good with reading RCs back to back and they don't have a good stamina. We have a nice little 100 days to go from here. You can actually sit and work on this thing. On the day of CAT, you're required to probably attack 5. Let's assume that this year the format changes or doesn't change. We'll have around 6 RCs at max. If you're supposed to solve 5 or 6 RCs, you need to have a very strong stamina of probably 6 or 7 RCs back to back. For you to develop that stamina, it's one step at a time. It doesn't happen that tomorrow you can't develop that just because you want to develop it. So let's assume you start today. Start solving 4 RCs back to back. Pick up RCs which are in the range of 300 to 600 words. Pick up RCs which have around 5 to 6 questions in them. So yes, 4 RCs back to back. Now from here till the next 25 days, then move to 5 RCs back to back, then move to 6 RCs back to back, and during all the while, instead of pushing yourself for saving time, push yourself for getting greater accuracy. Greater accuracy means you are able to understand those RCs in a much better manner. If you try to push yourself on time and try to do that reasonably hollow work of finishing an RC in 10 minutes, however you finish it, and having a poor accuracy, it doesn't help you in the long run. So please, first things first, develop a stamina. A good stamina of around 7 to 8 RCs back to back means you are really well equipped for cracking CAT and at least these 24 questions. Second, about accuracy. Yes, accuracy could be poor if either you have poor control over English or if you have poor vocabulary, because half the times you aren't able to understand the real essence of an RC. For this particular part, what you do is that if possible, get into a good discussion with your mentor or probably good friends who solve good RCs. So if you solve those RCs, you aren't able to make head or tail out of it, go to your mentor, discuss those RCs, go to that person who has a good control over English, go discuss with him. What happens is that while you discuss, you understand, okay, this is the new perspective of looking at that RC, where I was probably being very myopic and discussing, reading the first RC, first paragraph, making a judgment out of it, reading the second, third, drawing some inferences and unnecessary inferences. So you should avoid these practices. So while you do these RCs, please try to track your time, but that shouldn't be the governing factor. Governing factor should be accuracy. And please delve into as many topics as possible. So, if you're good with philosophy, go to psychology, go to history, go to science, go to biology, go to maths, try to do some sci-fi reading, do some neurology, some, probably biology based topics. Do whatever that falls under the sun, rather than, being a very niche person who says that I'm good with these 5, 6 things, but I'm not good with the others, because CAT is undoubtedly unpredictable as far as the kind of RCs that come up. Now, while we delve into these 24 questions of RCs, there's a very visible pattern. Approximately 10 to 12 questions are reasonably direct questions. Direct questions could be the ones which are not lifted word by word from the RC, but those which can be directly inferred from the RC. Another 4 to 5 questions are indirect inferences or tougher ones, like probably, what strengthens the author's argument, what weakens the author's argument, what could be the assumption behind the author's argument. Now, these kind of questions call for a critical understanding of what the author is trying to say, and after that critical understanding, we need to attach our piece of inference behind it and search for those options. So this becomes the second level of difficulty, but yes, if you read a lot from here, and even assuming that you haven't done anything till date and you have 100 days to go, systematic reading of RCs can build that little inference in you. The third or the remaining 6 kind of questions where, giving a suitable title to a particular RC, or who could have been the author to this particular passage, or, things like a particular word or a phrase has been picked out of an RC and you're being asked as to what is the meaning of that particular phrase. Sometimes it's an idiom, sometimes it's a phrase, sometimes they're indirectly trying to hint at something through some, heavier vocabulary word or things like that. That is the third type of questions which is being asked. All in all, these 24 questions form the backbone of the verbal section. Please train as hard as you can. Moving to the second section, which is those remaining 10 questions, which were 4 questions of para-jumbles, 3 questions of summary, and 3 questions of logical discontinuation, or rather, some of them call it as out of context questions. I'll take one at a time, and the good thing about these 10 questions is that they didn't have negative marking for a wrong answer. But yes, this particular statement, as I said, was with a smirk. The whole thought is that kids do end up getting carried away and they think that I'm going to attempt all the 10 of them. That's not how it works. Still, please hold on to your accuracy. What happens is that it's a very psychological game. I end up attempting all the 10 questions and suddenly I feel that, I have done really well because I have so many attempts. But the reality is that probably I knew only 5 of them. The remaining 5 I took a shot because accuracy isn't being rewarded here, and no negative marks for wrong answers. Please avoid this particular thing. Delving into these 3 topics, para-jumbles 4 questions, and all of these were key-in questions, that is para-jumbles, out of context questions, and summary questions. Now, key-in means what? Is that you aren't given 4 options for these questions. There's a small text box where you are supposed to key in the answer using the keyboard. So let's assume that there's a para-jumble. A para-jumble, you all know, is either a 4 or a 5 sentence thing where the 5 sentences have been put in a jumbled manner. You are supposed to rearrange these sentences to form a meaningful paragraph. So, for example, the para-jumble that I have been given has the logical order as 3, 1, 4, 2 and 5. All I have to do is go to the text box and key in using the keyboard 3, 1, 4, 2 and 5.